Right now, let's meet Michael Rose. Michael is a brilliant trumpet player in the same style of Harry James. Over the years, he has backed performers like Tony Bennett, Frank Sinatra Jr., Al Martino, Johnny Mathis, and many others. Michael and I spent about 2.5 hours talking about his career, and over the next few weeks, you'll hear some of that interview. Before leading his own band, Michael was in the trumpet section of some big-name bands, including Les Elgart. Let's meet Michael Rose. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about your background. You said you led an orchestra for 30 years?
That's correct, in Florida. And prior to that, I worked as a musician in New York. I went to Florida because my children were going to college at that time, and we decided to move to Florida. I was also teaching public education in New York for 24 years. I retired from that and went to Florida and started my band.
All right, second career then.
Yes.
I understand that you used to play trumpet with Les Elgart.
Yes, I did. Among many other bands. At the time that I joined Les Elgart, it was somewhere around 1960. And at that point in time, the big bands were no longer, out on the road for a year or two, that kind of thing. They were all doing sporadic dates. They do a weekend and then come back into New York and maybe go out for 6 days and then have a week off and do repeatedly that kind of work. Of course, that was in the middle of the rock era, and the big bands weren't that popular anymore with the younger generation, and the older generation were no longer supporting them because they were retired. Mm-hmm. In any case, I worked with Les sporadically. I didn't work with him a lot, mainly because we would come back in from a date and I would get a call to do something else, and then perhaps miss the next date that Les had on for the following week because maybe I had a week or two in New York. And at that point in time, as a matter of fact, I was just newly married and I wanted to stay in New York because I had been traveling on the road with other bands prior to that for a while. So I did that, and it was the Les Elgart band was really a wonderful band to play with. I enjoyed it very much.
This is from Les Elgart's 1960 album, Designs for Dancing, The Nearness of You. My guest is Michael Rose, who played in the Les Elgart Band. Michael, tell us about that special Elgart sound.
It was an identifying sound that the arranger, Charlie Albertine, devised for them, as a matter of fact. And every band wanted an identity, and that certainly was one. You know, the Glenn Miller had a specific melodic sound. The one pronounced sound that Larry had was his saxophone. That was very identifiable. He had a unique sound that you can tell on the record immediately. A very relaxed kind of sound. I think from 1953 on, when they started recording for Columbia, they just kept on selling records. As a matter of fact, at a point in time, I think about that time, about 1960, as a matter of fact, I remember my wife was working for Columbia Records in New York City, and they had other big bands, and they approached Duke Ellington and said, "We're going to have to drop your contract." And Duke said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, you know, you're not selling records." And Duke said, "Let me get this straight." He said, I thought I was making the record and you were selling the record." He said, that was my job to make the record, and your job was to sell the record. Yeah. Well, anyhow, they were telling him what the business was, the reality of the business. And so at that time, I think they dropped Benny Goodman, they dropped Harry James and Duke, but the Les Elgart and Larry Elgart Band kept on going.
This is from Les Elgart's biggest-selling album. In 1956, the LP, The Elgart Touch, made the top 20 on Billboard's album chart. Here is Stop It at the Savoy. You played trumpet with Les Elgart. Did you do solos with the band?
When I first joined the band, it was through the lead trumpet player on the band who I knew in New York. I was talking to him, and he said, "Hey, how would you like to come out with Les's band?" And I said, "Yeah, why don't I do that?" The next day we were playing at William and Mary College, and I think that's in West Virginia. And I was very naive from New York, didn't know anything about the rest of the country. And here we are in this college in West Virginia, and we went in to play a concert, and for college kids. And I thought, you know, this library, it's a very relaxed kind of sound. how is he going to do and how is it going to sound in the concert? How is he going to really get that audience excited about what we're doing? Although they recognized the arrangements that we were playing, we played for a while, and Les said, let's play When the Saints Go Marching In. And he said, who's going to play some jazz back there? And the lead trumpet player said, Michael, do it. So Les said, come on up front. So I went up front, and we played The Saints Go Marching In. After playing the melody, it was myself, a trombone player, and saxophone player, and the clarinet, and the rhythm section. After we played the first chorus of the melody, I had the improvised chorus that I was about to take. And at the beginning of that improvised chorus, I quoted, "Oh, I wish I was in the land of cotton. Old times there are soon forgotten. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland." The entire audience roared, stood up on their feet, and scared me. I didn't know why. I was so naive. I didn't know why they did that, not realizing where I was and what I was playing. That excited them. And so finished the chorus, and I went back to the section, and there was a big smile on Les's face. And I said, well, I guess I got the gig.
More with the man who played third trumpet with Les Elgart, Michael Rose, in just a few minutes. Now, back to our guest, Michael Rose. You mentioned that you were with other bands. Were you with other name bands?
Yes, I was with Gene Krupa's band. I was with Xavier Cugat's band. I was with the Glenn Miller Orchestra. I was with Blue Baron. I don't know if you know.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we play Blue Baron on the show. Yeah.
Do you? I was with the Jimmy Palmer Orchestra, which is a society orchestra from Chicago. As a matter of fact, I spent probably the longest time with that orchestra because it was an orchestra that worked society ballrooms in the hotels.
Jimmy Palmer and his orchestra. We're talking to Michael Rose. And Michael, you mentioned you were with Gene Krupa.
I joined Gene Krupa when I came out of the Army. I was in the First Army Band in New York City on Governor's Island. And we were the host band for the dignitaries that came in to New York, and we played all the parades. And when I got out of the Army, I had an audition in NOLA Studios in New York City, and I joined Gene Krupa at the Atlantic City at the Steel Pier. Gene didn't have a big band at that time, but he had an engagement for a big band, so I was with the band all of 2 weeks and then left. But over the years, up to 3 months before Gene passed away, I worked with him sporadically, and that was over a period of I think 1959 to about 1975. I was called upon to play with a band if they had a specific engagement. But I remember, and here's something that really hits home about music in the era that we were playing. I got called to do a date with Gene Krupa with the big band in Amityville, Long Island. Remember the motion picture, the Amityville horror or something?
Yes.
Like that? Yeah. Well, this was in the same location in the same town, and we had 17-piece band show up at a VFW hall for a concert, and there were 14 people in the audience.
Really? Only 14?
14 people in the audience, and a 17-piece band was playing. Gene played like there were 4,000 people out there.
Wow.
Smile on his face. Mm-hmm. Just a beautiful man, a gentleman. And I remember seeing Gene Krupa playing with the Benny Goodman Orchestra and Harry James sitting next to him with 3,000 people in the audience, and here I was sitting next to Gene Krupa with 14 people.
When you were with the Glenn Miller Band, was Ray McKinley the leader?
No. I was with the Glenn Miller Band in 1980. I was with the Glenn Miller Band for a very specific purpose. As a matter of fact, I contracted the band to go to Europe. We went to Europe for 6 weeks. And we were going to do concerts of Germany, France, the Netherlands, Brussels, all in various parts of Europe. We just crisscrossed Europe back and forth, and was met with really great reception in every concert. Every concert was sold out.
Did you ever meet some of the leaders of the Miller Band, like Larry O'Brien? And
yeah, Larry O'Brien, who's living in Hawaii. I spoke with Larry O'Brien about 2 years ago, and he said he loved Hawaii. He retired.
Fine gentleman.
Oh, he did a great job. He did a great job, and he was just a wonderful player.
Hi. Now let's return to our guest, Michael Rose. I'm talking to band leader Michael Rose. Michael, I'm sure it has been a challenge keeping your band together and playing this type of music.
The audience started changing, and their musical tastes changed. And while I could be adaptable in terms of playing the music that they wanted to play, I just thought that the music that I was playing from the big band era was too important to waste on doing something that the Beatles that they wanted to hear. So we kind of lost favor there in terms of musically what they wanted and what I was playing. So we just decided just a year ago to make the change and come to Kansas City, where I have my 12-year-old grandson who is now playing trumpet. I thought of possibly starting a band here in Kansas City, but we're just kind of getting everything taken care of as far as our house and everything else is concerned. So too busy doing those kinds of things to start a band. But I have all of my library and equipment and everything here to possibly be able to do that.
Well, I know you have had an exciting life playing with all those bands from Xavier Cugat to Gene Krupa, and I'm looking forward to our next talk.
Well, I look forward to that. That's certainly something that we love to talk about and love to do.
We'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for calling.
Here is Michael Rose leading his own band and doing the trumpet solo on I Had the Craziest Dream. That's from the Michael Rose CD, Rose-Colored Classics. Michael will be back with us next week to talk more about his career, his music, and the people he worked with during his years as a musician and leader.
This is jazz vocalist Lisa Kelly, and you're listening to the all-new Big Band Swing with Jim Stone.
East of the sun and west of the moon, we'll build a dream house of love, dear. Near to the sun in the day, near to the moon at night, we'll live a lovely way, dear. Living on love in the pale moonlight, just you and I, forever and a day. Love will not die, and we'll keep it that way. Up among the stars, we'll find a harmony of life to a lovely tune. East of the sun and west of the moon, east of the sun and west of the moon. Oh, east of the sun and west of the moon, we'll be the dream house of love, dear. Near to the sun in the day, near to the moon at night, we'll live a lovely way, dear. Living on love on the pale moonlight, just you and I, forever and a day. Love will not die, we'll keep it that way. Up among the stars, we'll find a harmony of life to a lovely tune. East of the sun and west of the moon, east of the sun and west of the moon, oh, of the moon. Just you and I, forever and a day. Love will not die, we'll keep it that way. Up among the stars, we'll find a harmony alive to a lovely tune. East of the sun and west of the moon. East of the sun and west of the moon. West of the moon, east of the sun, west of the moon.
That was Lisa Kelly, and Lisa will be my guest in a couple of weeks.